And it's not just talk. The woman was lying there naked. Do you understand? One of her breasts remained on one side, while the other breast was severed from the opposite side. Her eyes were gouged out of their sockets. She was sliced wide open from here, all the way down to here. And that's how she lay. I saw through the yard as they carried her once, then a second time. That means they cut her in half, that woman. A baby was lying by that wall and didn't even know what an umbilical cord was. Yes, well, wrapped in the umbilical cord, and they just threw that newborn baby there against the wall. A priest stepped out into the light and performed a brief religious service. Then he ordered them to bring out all of their axes. Every single thing they possessed, he blessed it all, and then he said, go ahead and slaughter all the Poles. Today I have received a direct order that I must murder you. Kill me first. Please do not kill my daughter. My own child, just kill me first. I beg you, let me not have to witness how they die. Only then will every single trace of my existence be gone. It's been over 100 years. My grandmother gave it to me. I have to say that I find this to be a difficult thing for me.
We want to preserve as many memories of 20th century history witnesses as possible. If you know someone whose story we should save for future generations, please contact us at historyhiking@krkfilm.com. We welcome you to yet another edition of our ongoing counter-interview series. For today's episode, we have traveled all the way to the town of Osoacień. We are here to pay a special visit to Mrs. Janina Szachniewicz. Mrs. Janina was born back in the year 1938 in the town of Hucisko, Litowskie. For our discussion today, we are going to explore what life and childhood were truly like back in Eastern Galicia. We will examine the harsh German occupation and the overwhelming presence of the Soviet soldiers. And naturally, we must discuss the tragic events of 1943, specifically regarding the Ukrainian Insurgent Army and the horrific genocide that occurred throughout both Volhynia and Eastern Galicia. Mrs. Janina is our first witness who will share her personal experiences regarding this wartime reality, specifically within the context of Eastern Galicia. However, before we proceed, let us start from the very beginning of your story. Mrs. Janina, you were born in 1938, is that correct?
38, the 10th of November.
You look absolutely wonderful today. You possess such an incredibly sharp memory, as we have already established during our conversation off camera. Could you tell me what was your very first childhood memory?
From childhood, oh yes. As a child, I'd run around the yard playing with everyone right from the start. Later, my mom gave me a cow. The cow ate the cabbage. Well, and that's how it was. A neighbor was building there. That was enough. I chased the neighbor or ran around when I was a bit bigger. There was open space there. They called it Deborah, and there were these pine-like trees, birch trees. I used to swing on them. I used to pick violets. There were so many violets, marsh marigolds, everything. And I was there until about a year. 2 years later, no more than that after all that, because 2 years later the Germans came. Well, because the army went forward first, later they came back. My father returned home from the army and we stayed home with my father and mother. The Germans came and they caught my father, took him away for forced labor to Germany.
Could you tell me what your father's name might be?
Jan Orłowski.
Was he a soldier in the September campaign? Did he fight in 1939?
Yes, but they didn't fight for long because they were pulled back somewhere right away. How those troops were retreating, I don't know how it was with those armies. He was pulled back from the front right away and managed to return home. But shortly after he arrived, the Germans came and took him away for forced labor in Germany. And we were left behind to stay with my grandmother, who was his mother. But I should also mention right from the very beginning that my father earned his entire living by crafting wooden spoons. Wooden spoons like that. He'd put them in a sack and sell them in Volhynia. And everywhere he went with them, selling them, trading them for groats, for this, for that. And that's how he made a living.
And do you remember Looking back at your childhood years, for instance, can you recall any Ukrainian children that you might have played with, been friends with, or perhaps interacted with in any way?
Yes, I remember one. She was even in Jefte, but she's passed away now. Her name was, I know her name was Sufika, but I can't say the last name because I don't know. I don't remember because back then people didn't care about last names. She was my best friend. That one girl would come over and she came here with her mother, a Ukrainian woman who came here.
And was there ever a specific moment when, for example, for some reason she decided to stop being friends with you, or perhaps she told you that she just couldn't be friends with you anymore?
No, there weren't those accusations. God forbid. Around us, there was no sign of that yet. Later it happened, and it also turned out that my grandfather was, how can I explain it to you, like a manager on a large estate. He looked after that estate. He was the overseer of it. My grandfather, not my father's father, when he was killed by a storm because there was a storm while they were on watch. He was killed, so my grandmother immediately got such a payout that she didn't need anything anymore. When that grandfather was killed, they gave my grandmother such a large pension that they said she was earning 3 meters of wheat and 3 meters of wheat back then. That was something, exactly that. My dear grandmother often took me to the local shop, which we called the cooperative. She'd take me inside to buy sweets and cookies. She always loved taking long walks with me, and she was truly fond of wearing red skirts. Later, once they took my father away, my grandmother was left alone. No one took her in, my father's mother, because I had 2 grandmothers. My grandmother on my mom's side and my grandmother on my father's side, so 2 grandmothers. That one grandmother was left alone, and so until, I don't know if she's still alive, but I don't know. Anyway, we were all together. I didn't experience anything like you're Polish or whatever there. It wasn't like that here because these were that.
A small Polish town.
Well, it was all Polish. Everyone in that village was Polish. Do you understand what I mean? There simply weren't any Ukrainians there. And that other village is, it's just, you see, my head is spinning now. That place right there, that is Litowsko. My mother's own mother, she lived in a village called Litowska. Yes, that was my other grandmother. And she came all the way over here just to take us back to her home. And later, I stayed in Litowska all the time with that grandmother from Litowska, and I never went back there to that other grandmother's, and I never met anyone like that there again. The very first murder that happened here began in this way. We were all fast asleep when perhaps 6 horse-drawn carts pulled into our yard. My grandmother shook me awake and whispered, "Get up, child, and start praying and begging for mercy because the Banderites have finally come for us." They surrounded the entire yard, but they were not actually looking for us. They were really after my aunt, my grandmother's own sister. And so she was pregnant, you know. And she pleaded with them because it was like that room and this one, just these clay walls, you understand. And she pleaded with them, "Don't beat me. If you beat me, you'll destroy my baby. I'm due to give birth soon. Take whatever you want." But there was nothing but screaming, and then it was over. Early in the morning, when we finally got up, oh my goodness, I looked out through the yard and watched as they carried her past once and then a second time. That can only mean they must have cut her in half, that poor woman. And they carried her out, put her on a cart, And in the morning, when I got up and went out, I looked to see what was by the wall of that little stable. A baby was lying by that wall and didn't even know what an umbilical cord was. Yes, well wrapped in the umbilical cord, and they just threw that newborn baby there against the wall. And they murdered that aunt and took her away to who knows where. That was the first murder. They wiped them out in that house. Their commander was named Kazio.
You're a commander of some upasotnia, is that right?
Yes, UPA Sotnia. And he became friends with my grandmother because they had been bringing those Banderites from France even before the war. He was quite fluent in the French language, but he really struggled whenever he tried to speak Ukrainian and things of that nature. My grandmother, on the other hand, was proficient in French, German, and, well, she also knew Yiddish and Hebrew. And so my grandmother decided to help him because the Russian soldiers had already captured him and were actively hunting him down. And they chased him to my grandmother's house. He escaped and said, "Auntie, very hard times are coming for you, but I will help you and they won't kill you. Don't be afraid of anything, just save my life." Then my grandmother told him to climb inside. You know, there used to be these large old-fashioned wooden chests. You don't know. Such chests,
right.
You understand, larger than this table. Everything was kept in those chests. Money, furs, and everything. Everything is kept there. My grandmother hid him away deep in the back of the old wooden chest, and then the Russians, they suddenly flew in, dragged my grandmother out to the front of the house, ordered her to raise both of her hands high, and warned her that if they discovered him hiding there inside the apartment, my poor grandmother would be executed right there on the spot without any mercy. But it was God's will that they simply didn't. They just didn't manage to find him. And from that moment on, he acted as our protector. So we spent our nights hiding in the mud, and we would only come out during the daylight hours. And then, late the following day, well, look, it wasn't exactly a day, but sometime after that, you know, I happened to see my mother's dear cousin riding her carriage back home from the city, all the way from Brody. I say to my mother, "Look, Milka Hantsarova is heading back home right now, so please run over to her and invite her to our place, because we really must. I truly need to speak with her." And the lady just flew right in. And this isn't just idle talk. The woman was lying there naked, do you understand? One breast was on one side, and the other breast had been cut off on the other side. Her eyes had been gouged out. She was cut open, right from here to here, and she was just lying there like that. And I realized right away that they must be very close, so I turned and ran away. A little later, they came back and took her away. She was only 26 years of age. That was the second such horrific and terrible murder that I had witnessed. For a long time after that, we were still forced to remain in hiding. Then this man guided us safely to the local church. We eventually arrived at the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. The local priest stepped out, conducted the religious service, and then instructed everyone to bring out all of their axes. Everything they possessed, he blessed it all, every single thing. And he said, "Go forth and slaughter the Poles, because the Poles are not needed here. Only our land matters, and it is their lands that we require for ourselves." Indeed.
You actually saw this happen inside the church that
so.
very moment? And were you there with someone else while you were in that?
With him, with his son, with that Kadzim, with the commander's son.
Let us return for a brief moment to that commander we were discussing. I have to ask, was it truly the case that this Sotnik chose to protect you simply because he felt a profound and lasting debt of gratitude towards your family?
Yes, for the fact that she didn't let those Ukrainians, those Russians kill him. My grandmother didn't let them. So he was paying back that debt to my grandmother. You understand? And after that, we decided to leave the place. They were shouting and singing while that priest was busy praying. I really don't want to talk about it, maybe some other time. Honestly, I just didn't feel comfortable in that church. And that was simply because it happened to be a Greek Catholic church. No, not a Russian one, but rather a Polish Catholic church. To be honest with you, I really didn't like it at all. I arrived back home, and my grandmother said to me, "Janka, please run quickly over to the grove to visit Aunt Staska." And they had such a place out in the groves. There was such a small little house stood there, and that is where they used to plant all those fruits. Mostly a lot of sweet cherries, and they would take them and pickle them somehow in barrels. You understand, those cherries? That aunt of his, and later they were by the road. When people drove by, they would sell them. But she says, go let them not guard anything, the farm or anything. Because Kadzim said that tomorrow they would go to kill them. Because if anything, that's what that leader said to my grandmother. He tells us the very next day the aunt had already been killed. They took her life, they murdered her. And so we sat there once again for quite some time, and they were just hanging around the area, and they had no possible way to reach us. They really had no way to get here. It was just like that. They would simply stand there watching us, observing every single place we went and everything we did. And every night we would crawl into a pile of rotting grain, wrap ourselves up tight, and just lie there. Then one night, oh no, also my uncle was still there. He had 5 children, and he was alone with those children. They finally caught him, tied him up tight, bound him with heavy ropes and thick string, tied him to a sturdy tree, and threw him into the deep pond. And that is exactly how they drowned him. That particular uncle. And so the days that followed were exactly like that. You know how it was back then. The Ukrainian children simply refused to play with me. The Ukrainian school was somewhere further away, but those children didn't play, they didn't come. There were no children's games like children play, there were none. I had to be at home all the time and watch over my grandmother and myself, because my mother was hiding all the time, because my mother was still young then. And so next time I look, he's coming on a horse under the window. He went ahead and tied up the horse. Back where I come from, they used to put up this sort of insulation for the winter months. What I mean is they would drive in these wooden stakes and stuff straw in there, leaves, mostly leaves, and that's how they kept warm for the winter. My grandmother used to tell us that, and also my father would write to us constantly, insisting that we stop sending him anything at all, just send him cigarettes, because he didn't want or need anything else, just cigarettes for food. If he could sell them, then he'd have cigarettes. And whatever egg we had, we would save it for those cigarettes. Grandmother, I sometimes say, I'll cook an egg for you, Grandma. I don't want it. And then misfortune struck our lives once more, because a Banderite soldier came back to look for us all over again. I take a look, and my mother has brought me inside, away from all that thick, heavy mud. I look again. He is busy tying his horse to that rail, and now he is walking right into our apartment. He is searching, looking around everywhere. You're Poles because you have icons. I mean, the paintings are Polish, so you're Poles. And he walked around the apartment and says, do you know why I came? We don't know. You'll tell us. Yeah. I received an order today, and that order is to take your life.
How old were you back then when he finally came?
I was just in my 5th year at that time.
And you are able to recall it with such clarity?
yes,
And what were
indeed.
the emotions you felt back then? Could you try to describe it for me?
At what point did he arrive? There was such a deep, burning hatred. Do you understand? Such hatred that I won't give in to you. You can do whatever you want with me, but I won't give in to you. And so immediately, a great lament. My grandmother stood in the corner under that. She was already all dressed, everything, because after all, and she's crying, don't kill me first, don't kill my daughter's child, but me first. Let me not see how they die. My mother cried out to him, please, just kill me. She was down on her knees, crawling across the floor and kissing his leather boots, and I was forced to stand there and watch every single moment of it. Then he walks up and says, what do you have to say for yourself, my little black-eyed girl? It's because of my dark eyes. I just stood there staring, looking right at him. I said, go ahead, slaughter me, you wicked devil. I'll never give in. Here, he put the knife like this. Here, slaughter me, but I won't give in to you. I will keep on living. And you say so. Only that was in Ukrainian. I know it was like, you say so. And he sat under the window. There was a window and a table, and he sat like that. He sat there for a little while, then stood up and spoke these words. If that is what you truly say, then I simply do not have the heart to end your life. And so then he went out and said, don't leave the house, not for the cow, not for the chickens. You're not here. You've been killed. You are not here because everyone is convinced that you have already been killed. Pack up what you can and leave this house right now so that no one sees you. And that is precisely what we did. And so he finally decided to let us go free. That was the moment I saved my entire family.
You were really quite lucky, weren't you?
I know, perhaps it was just a stroke of luck, or maybe it was this very thing. Oh, I truly believe in this. She provides me with absolutely everything I need.
We said we're going to talk about this figurine and the various things we have prepared here in just a moment. But tell me, in the years after the war, did your relatives ever tell you more about that situation once you were older, specifically when that Banderite came to the house? Was that something you ever found yourselves sitting down and discussing again in the years that followed?
No one even had the courage to speak of it. It left such a deep scar. It was something terrible. You can't imagine how terrible it was that someone like that, so strong, well-built, young, was wearing. I saw knives. He had them here. But it was draped in a collection of little grenades. And later, I found myself wondering, who exactly was he intending to target? Was it an elderly grandmother, a small innocent child, or a defenseless woman? But then he simply walked out. He packed up all his things, left us stranded in that room, and somehow we managed to survive.
Let's go back to that moment when you saw the body of the woman you mentioned. You're describing all of this through the eyes of a child. I think it's very hard to understand, looking back, how such images can become so fixed in a child's consciousness. How did you, what does a child feel seeing such dramatic scenes? If you could try to describe that.
You want to know the truth, you eventually just go numb, you harden up, and you just learn to accept everything. Whatever God gives, you accept it all, and you just resign yourself to it then, because there's no other way out. There isn't. And Ukrainian woman was walking by, she grabbed me, pulled me down from a little hill, because it was muddy here, cows were passing by, and there we were. I was walking on that hill. She pulled me down. She beat me, just because she wanted to. She had the right. Do you understand? They tormented us at every turn because I was a Polish child. And they were always coming around and doing that. Later, I went through a second tragedy when the German forces launched a fierce attack on the town of Huta, Pieniacka.
Could you see the Huta from a distance?
Yes, that's right. It wasn't very far away from where we were. Early in the morning, there was this massive noise, all that shouting and groaning. Sir, it was so awful that you simply couldn't bear to listen to it. The cats, the dogs, even the cows, everything was howling and moaning, just who knows what, and they kept on fighting like that until 12 o'clock. It was exactly 12 o'clock. I made my way back home, feeling completely and utterly exhausted. The German army arrived because those German soldiers were still stationed right there among us, and they proceeded to clear out that place, the Huta. So when we finally made our way there, right after the massacre, the very next day, well, I mean, we actually left that same evening, but we didn't arrive until the following day because we had to take a hidden path so that no one would spot us, since we simply couldn't risk using the main road, or we would have run straight into the Banderites. We made our way across, and what did I see? A massive pile of corpses, or perhaps something else entirely. I can't say for sure, because that's just how it was back then. I remember picking up a single apple. I recalled that clearly. I kept it until Christmas, while stray dogs wandered by carrying human remains. Whether it was legs or arms, dogs were carrying human remains, those people from the Huta. Later we went to Brody. There weren't attacks like that there. There have never been any murders that were like that one. Well, what more could I possibly tell you about that time? During the course of the war, we were forced to evacuate from there as well, because when the German forces arrived in the area, they evacuated us from our home, and they moved a strange man into our house who was, he was actually busy sending secret signals to the Germans using radio transmitters. Well, yes, what is it that you call it exactly? Well,
He is working as a radio officer and as a radio operator.
Yes, he was indeed. From Środa Wielkopolska. He was, and mother would always send him fresh eggs and creamy eggnog, though I suppose I could be mistaken. Perhaps I am mistaken. She also gave him plenty of rich chocolate to eat. I actually met that man while I was in Poland, following the war. Do you have any idea who he was? He was a policeman. Well, his name was Hans. I mean, he recognized me, and he didn't, that woman anymore.
What was that meeting like for you, and under what circumstances did you two end up meeting?
I first met him because an elderly woman was busy brewing some moonshine. You know, she had poured out a large amount of grain, was distilling that moonshine, and he arrived, witnessed it, and began beating her mercilessly when the frantic screaming started echoing from inside that house. Well, I just ran over there to see what was actually going on. And I take a look. I say, Hans, you are here as well. The moment he caught sight of me, that was the last I ever saw of him. Do you understand? He got on his bike, Hans was gone. Things like that happened. Those were also such hard wartime events. Like when a German dog bit me because the Germans were retreating then, and I was going up to an old man's place for apples, and the German dog was coming. He stopped it and said something to it. I don't know. The dog came. I still have it here. It tore my leg open like this. It tore my legs, threw me down, and he just laughed, said something to it. That dog ate and left me with that leg so painful, miserable. Tanks were going through the street. I had to cross. I got home, lay down, and didn't get up again. It was getting worse and worse, and grandmother took me. She ended up taking me to see that German doctor one more time. He was a very polite man, and he greeted us quite warmly. My grandmother was exceptionally well versed in many languages. She spoke with him directly, and everything proceeded exactly as it should have done. And that was the very same day that the German soldiers were already beginning to flee the area. And there were these Pisausi Ukrainians. They called them Lachiaki. And they wrote on everyone's house. They wrote a circle for one, a cross for another. We didn't know what it was, why it was there. But that was just because of that. Which of the Poles were to be slaughtered and which of the Ukrainians were to be allowed to live?
What was the symbol that was on your house?
There was on our house, there wasn't one because we didn't have a house, because people had just taken us in out of kindness, do you understand? And we slept in the barn with the cows, and that's how we slept. We stayed near them. Well, and in that's how we kept going the whole time.
And what exactly was happening with your father when you saw what went down in Huta Pieniacka? Was he still away performing forced labor at that time? When did he actually manage to make his way back home to you? Did he ever return to you at all?
This is really hard for me. My father, you see, he really wasn't worth a single thing in this life. It is important that you understand this, so I am going to say it. My own father could not even bring himself to offer me a greeting. My father, you see, he actually asked me, I really would like to know, but what kind of schooling do I have? And I didn't have any schooling because you say a person doesn't know anything, because I was everywhere. And in those, snack bars, I sold goods because no one else would take the risk. For example, they wouldn't give someone 5,000 or 10,000 worth of stock just for them to disappear. You were required to account for absolutely everything that happened. Then my father arrived and asked me why I had grown so very little. His next question was whether I had received any education at all. I told him there wasn't any, that I had no schooling whatsoever. You are going to see exactly how I intend to raise my own children. I simply did not want to have anything more to do with my father.
And did you miss him during the war?
Yes, I cried for him. I missed him. You understand? I missed him because he's my dad. Dad will come and things will be good for us. He'll look for firewood and everything. I'm telling you, I'd give away the last of the eggs, anything just to give to my father. And that's how he acted. So my family treated me in a really quite terrible way.
And did your mother ever make an effort to sit you down and explain to you, either during the conflict or in the years that followed the war, what war actually is, why it all happened in the first place, and why you were forced to witness those terrible, senseless killings?
My mother hardly ever said a single word to me. I really don't know why. I'm afraid I won't say.
Do you suppose it could have been a direct result of everything that she witnessed and had to endure?
She just had that kind of personality. I was nothing to her. Excuse my language, just a whore, and damn me to hell. My life has always been very difficult. Even after we arrived here, it remained hard, and it is still hard today. At least there were no more of those murders, because I never saw anything like that again. aside from those people, that one aunt of mine, the other aunt as well, and that poor murdered uncle that I saw. And then there is that child, the one who they desecrated, a little child, and that was it. And the women, everyone went under the knife, under the knife, under the knife. It was like that in the village. If a son wanted to join, he had to kill his mother to join the Banderites, right, to be signed up. He was so stubborn that the father killed the son and himself, and they didn't join the Banderites. There were such family tragedies. It even happened right here in the neighborhood. But as for us, well, you see, it was my only grandmother. She was the one who truly raised me the right way. She was truly. How could I ever tell you? I am currently with a professor in Lviv. Well, you see, she was the one who looked after the house and all the people, and she also helped the doctors at the hospital. That is the reason why she knew so many different languages, and she is the one who guided me through it all.
Tell me, as you work here, I would like to know, did your family, or perhaps you yourself, ever make an attempt in the later years of your life to track down that specific man, that UPA commander who had provided you with such vital assistance?
No, that is not the case. We were unable to locate him, unfortunately, because he had been killed quite early on. You see, the situation was like this. These pits had been dug, and the German soldiers were keeping their clothes stored inside those pits. However, the Germans had gone ahead and booby-trapped everything. Every single piece of clothing. They had set traps for them right there in the forest. And whoever went over there, they would get hit and never make it back home. And that is exactly where he was killed. I only saw his wife after the war had finally come to an end. I spoke with her after the war. We were already well acquainted.
Please tell me a little bit more about the conversation. What exactly did you two talk about?
Well, those people were shouting that she was a Banderite, this and that, but she defended herself and stayed with her family somewhere. She said it wasn't true because we helped. Oh, and it was like that all the time, you know, that kind of thing. Her son was also killed. She was left all on her own. So those people are no longer around anymore. 2 uncles remained, but no, that's not quite right. Something truly terrible must have happened back then. I can't tell you. Some dark things should never be uncovered. Those uncles wouldn't even say hello to my dear mama. And they didn't ask how she was doing. I didn't ask about it either, because it wasn't my place. I came to them and I didn't want to put them at risk.
Are you feeling any sense of gratitude toward that man for having saved your life?
Yes, I understand. I hold no resentment towards anyone. Those were just the times we lived in. We had to endure those times.
Why do you think you had to live through them?
Because that's how it is. Because it's in the scriptures everywhere. You see what I have? It is present everywhere indeed. And the current war is also being described in detail at this very moment. And I truly believe in it with all of my heart. You see this and you see that, don't you? I believe in it. And I pray, sir, that for those individuals who are murdering me, who are beating me, I still pray that God does not hold against them the terrible things that they did. You see, I am simply not a vengeful person. I am always happy to help anyone in need. But honestly, who would ever think to ask you? No, well, perhaps some might say this or that about me, but that is rare. And if they do, it is purely out of jealousy. For some reason, his family does not care for me, but they do not have to, and I will manage just fine on my own. And those things all the time, you know, those massacres there, you'd wake up in the morning and you saw nothing. Oh, the Missouri are burning, the Missouri are burning. Those were people who had bought land, right? And they had that land. The Banderites came, burned everything, they burned those people, only took the cattle. There were just so many lies. They keep lying about this and about this as well. Marshal Piłsudski gave land to the Poles as a reward for their service in the army. The claim that he personally granted land to the Poles is simply not true. It is because my husband's father actually went ahead and purchased land just like that one, as well as the plot that is located way up there. And many of them went on to handle their own land partitioning, and they really paid for all of those lands. And later, for that, they were deported to Siberia.
Could you tell me the circumstances under which you ended up finding yourself in Podkamien?
Well, I ended up in Podkamien because I wanted to see it, because my grandmother once told me they were building a church there. The devil wouldn't allow it. Well, he went ahead and knocked it all down, just like that. And they said, we will build the church without that piece anyway. So they went ahead and built the church. But when they arrived the next morning, there was a massive stone standing right there. That is the very same stone sitting near our stable, because I was actually there just recently myself. There's only now. And people used to go to that Podkamien and believe in it, in that stone, like they do now in Częstochowa.
You brought back that little figurine from Podkamien, didn't you? And when you were there, when you were picking up that figurine, what year would that have been, roughly speaking? Do you happen to recall that at all?
It's not years, it's over 100 years now. My grandmother gave it to me. It's already over 100 years old.
You really believe that little figurine protected you, don't you?
It did, and I still believe it does. If I say a little prayer, oh, they even laugh at me here, Aneta and the others. I say a prayer, and somehow the misfortune passes. I believe in it. I mean, you have to believe. If you want something to happen, you have to believe in something.
But tell me, were there not moments throughout your entire life when you found yourself questioning the very existence of God, especially after witnessing the true, horrific face of war and seeing the brutal, senseless reality of cold-blooded murder?
Priests, yes. But certainly not in God.
Have you never asked yourself why God chooses not to intervene when such things happen in the world, especially when you are going through such truly terrible times?
No. I only blamed the priests because it was all the priests' fault, like with that one priest. Because later, when they came here, my mother took up with another man and had 2 children with him. She went to baptize one of them and had some sort of argument with the priest or something. And then, on the following day, he reached out and grabbed me by my tattered, worn-out clothing. Oh, please forgive me, my hat, and all of those miserable shredded rags I was wearing. And he proceeded to lead me out right in front of that from the cathedral, because there used to be these big cathedrals beaten. And he said, look, she's going to the dogs. And her mother went to the dogs, and she's going to the dogs. Woof, woof. And until the end of my schooling, which I finished very well and all, I was acting like a dog, barking, woof, woof, for those children. I had to endure such terrible, relentless torment. I would get up at 5 in the morning to drive the cows out. It was freezing cold. I had to sit out there with the cows all day, and my life was just constantly incredibly hard.
Could you please tell us a bit more about that sickle?
Oh,
I'm quite curious. Did you decide to bring it all the way from your hometown after all these years?
I brought it from my hometown. My grandmother, when they were coming here, she said maybe some little stalk of grain could be cut or something, to have something to cut with. So Grandma took it. That was Grandma Tekla, because I had a Grandma Tekla. She was a very wealthy woman. But because she had Podolia, and in Podolia she had 80 of those hectares of land, and she was from Podolia. She used to say there's no land like in Podolia.
Tell me, did you decide to return to your old hometown years later? Were you hoping to see if it still stood or even existed after the war? And if you don't mind, when exactly did that happen?
Yes, that is correct. I have been there 3 times.
When was the first time? Do you remember roughly?
4 years have passed since the war came to an end.
How were you feeling throughout the entire duration of your journey? Were you feeling afraid at any point?
I have to say, yes, my hair stood straight up on end. It went just terribly. And then they started telling me that they are the ones who are actually working for us now. But because they feed us. Because if it weren't for them, we'd have nothing, we'd have died off, and they're suffering because of us. So common. I was making the bed, and he says, you'd have to talk to me somewhere else, then I'll talk to you. A Ukrainian. Do you really think that they have any respect for us over there? It's because you don't speak to them in Ukrainian the way that I do. They don't even know who I am. I have never spoken Polish with them yet. I've only ever written and read in it. They are the ones who keep calling me from over there.
When you finally arrived back at your old hometown, what exactly did you see when you looked around? I'm talking about the place where you were actually born.
When I arrived there, there was nothing left but a piece of the side of the house ripped away, and the entire house had completely collapsed.
Did the memories come back to you?
They did, but not to such a great extent, because I was really forced to do it. Please, you must watch over my mother. But those terrible things, they only came later. My mother was wounded back when the German forces launched their attack there, at Holubice. Yes, we were living in Holubice at the time. The Germans attacked Holubice. That's when we went to pick sunflowers. And a moment later, we looked. And the sunflowers are talking to us. What exactly happened? I thought there were 2 Russian scouts stationed there. And they asked, we're German, we're German. I say that this morning they packed up and they all left, and About 5 minutes later, these massive objects started flying through the air. I honestly don't know what they were. It was like five clusters of grenades, just 5 grenades. And the howling was so loud that you couldn't hear anything in the world around you. Everyone immediately fled down into the cellar. And a terrible tragedy. You say, don't believe in something. I believe. And you know why? This girl, Stasia, my best friend, her brother, we were sitting there. I was holding her hand. She was holding mine. And I hear Stasia's hand. The hand is gone. Something happened to Stasia, the hand. She's already dead, and I see, a flash of flame, and her brother is sitting behind me. Her brother is dead too. We went out. They were already dead. They killed a mass of people there. And not to believe that someone is there. Then why did it fly past me and just scratch me here? Well, it scratched me. And they're dead. There was actually a young girl just like that who came by here earlier today. I'm honestly telling you, I try to live my life with faith, and I truly believe that you have to respect other people. But how are they really doing? Perhaps they will learn something someday. Perhaps they will finally understand it all someday. That is what I honestly think, because right now, probably knocked. Like it was written, that the devil will take over the world to rule. And I think that's how it is.
Could you please tell us a bit more about that Ukrainian friend you were so close with and used to hang out with? You finally met up again after so many long years, right? Did you manage to keep in touch with each other during that time? What was that reunion actually like?
No, I didn't meet her again because they killed her there.
And what was she killed for, and who killed her?
a heavy shell crashed right down into the cellar. 30 people were killed in that single horrific moment. Do you have any idea what kind of absolute fear that was? Human beings were just torn to pieces. It was truly a sight to behold. Then, tragically, she was killed. I never had the chance to see her again, and I wept for her for years, for my dear Stasia.
You're talking about Stasia, your friend from Poland, right? But
Yeah,
I am
for
actually
sure.
asking about that Ukrainian girl you mentioned at the beginning, the one you were friends with. Did you two ever manage to meet up again after that?
We met, but she, as it seems, somehow she passed away so very quickly. She was off somewhere. I really don't know. She wasn't. She hadn't even reached 50 years of age when she passed away, poor Sofika. I have no idea what was actually wrong with her, because her father and my own father were both taken away together to that place, to that Germany. Sir, please allow the people to consider what... I've lived through so much in my life. Those heartless murderers, I hear they murdered someone there. You see, I didn't see it. I won't say because I didn't see them then, because I didn't see it. But I heard, how they told it. And this woman was walking with a neighbor, and one neighbor says to the other, "You take these rakes to my wife, because I'll come later." She carried the rakes and never came back. They found her strangled in the corn. They committed so many murders that Poles had nowhere to hide with small children. They fled begging for help. There was no help, sir. As they carried those small children in their arms, the mothers cried.
Did your family feel any kind of resentment or bitterness that the Polish partisans weren't coming to help you, that they weren't saving Poles?
Do you know what I think? My own family never really felt that way at all, because my grandmother, she was quite a bit older, and she was a very serious traditional woman. So she never really concerned herself with things like armies or politics. She was much more focused on helping other people in need. She'd treat them, she'd do this and that. So she didn't really get involved in that. She just focused on raising me. Oh, they say the Russians. I know, for example, when we were traveling here, we were mid-journey. Then they forced us to board in the town of Brody. On the day of Palm Saturday, stepping onto the station platform, and just left us there. We were on that platform for 3 weeks. We were just tossed around like that. And you know what an ordeal that was? So the Ukrainians wouldn't leave us alone, because they come and beat us. There's this one gentleman. Oh, good heavens, I have forgotten his name again. You know, the one I am always mentioning, that particular gentleman. He was such a deeply serious man. He eventually ended up taking over the guard duty shifts, and every single night the Polish people would rise up to defend their homes against the Banderite forces. And let me tell you something else, before it slips my mind entirely, when we went to report ourselves to that KU office, because we were in the process of getting official papers for all the things we were leaving behind and whatnot. What they'd give us here. We received official papers just like that. As we moved along, Mrs. Remiakova struggled to carry her 18-year-old son, brutally murdered in the cellar, throat slit, his body hanging limp, dragging him up the wooden stairs, sobbing as those Banderites started heartlessly murdered him. You know, everyone heard about it and was terrified of the Banderites. If there was anything, you got nothing. And I'll tell you something else. You say you have to trust people and all that. My own brother, my uncle, my mom's brother, my grandmother's son, they gave this. He handed us a single sack of rye. Can you even believe that? He stole that very sack of rye from us, the one we were keeping for our bread. What is there left to believe in now? So what would you say to that?
I honestly find it very difficult to offer any kind of meaningful comment on that because none of us here could ever truly begin to imagine the depth of what you personally had to endure. It's truly beyond words. Thank you very much for this conversation. I think it was a difficult but important return to the past.
I really don't know if it was all that difficult. That there's a lot I haven't said. For example, I didn't mention how I ran after the Russians because trains were going back and forth. Some were going to the front, others were coming back from the front, and a third was coming here to Poland, ours. We traveled here for 6 weeks. Can you even imagine? Without a scrap of bread, without anything. So I would sit there, then I would run to them and plead, please listen, just a tiny piece of bread. And so to get that little piece of bread, everyone would pitch in. One person would say they could spare this much, another that much, and another that much. And so they gave it to me piece by piece, and it simply had to last. There is only one thing that still manages to move me to this very day. I recall a man who was so bound up and he was terribly wounded. By the door, he said, wait, he went somewhere. You know what? He had this shirt on. Believe me, I saw every detail on that man. Take his linen shirt, for example. It was quite thick. He's searching, and the poor thing had nothing. He went and found somewhere. He had some sugar hidden, yellow sugar, and he went and poured 2 handfuls and was jumping around. He was so happy that he had something to give to. And that man has just remained stuck in my mind. People like that really ought to be born. That is what I think. And they would do everything. They even tied up fish for me. That's all just joking around now but every day I was chasing after a little piece of bread. So I know what bread costs now and what it cost then. If only everyone were as hungry as I was hungry. I've never eaten more in my life than I ate then. When we arrived here, I'd gather ears of grain straw, take it to the baker, and buy rolls.
Mrs. Janina, thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us for another interview that I think was emotionally difficult for everyone. Let us know in the comments what you think of this story. We'll also try to publish Mrs. Janina's memories and her story in an extended version on our social media. So keep an eye out, because a part or all of those memories will surely appear. Please remember that we are constantly and actively seeking out the very last of the living witnesses to these events. If your own grandparents happen to survive the horrors of the Second World War, and this applies not just to those from Eastern Galicia or Volhynia, please do reach out and contact us at historyhikingkrkfilm.com. I would like to thank you once again, ma'am, for your time. I truly wish you the very best of health on behalf of myself and all of our dedicated viewers.
I thank you for having the courage so that at least the world will know this unnecessary human malice. I say that because it's just unnecessary human malice, because a person should behave like a human being.
Okay, and let that be the punchline of this whole story. Thank you once again. See you soon.